Okay, today we are painting this little seagull. We have our value study here in black and white. I've also done a sketch. Did this one on tracing paper. I painted this for a class several years ago. But this is the value study I did. It's really important to do a value study when you are starting a new painting. Value is very important. So these were the colors that I used in the original class. It was cerulean blue and Payne's gray, nickel azo yellow, bright red by Senoyer, or it's a pyro red, and Indian yellow. But for this one, because we're painting with a limited palette with our intermediate class, I used the phthalo blue and the Payne's gray, and I got a very similar color, as you can see, to the cerulean. I'm also using the New Gamboge by Daniel Smith. This is the Pyro Red. And we'll mix these two to get the oranges we need. So I've traced out the bird with a red pen so that you can see all the detail. And I have taken the masking fluid. This is PBO, and I like to use PBO because my students can see it better on the videos, and I have masked out all the highlights in the bird. So we need to basically, once we get it traced out, we need to mask it off. Then I've gone in with that same mixture of the phthalo blue and Payne's gray and done a nice gray wash for the background. So we're ready to paint the bird. I did make this a little bit darker in here because there is a suggestion of buildings in the background. You can leave that out or put that in. That's totally up to you. So now we're going to start on the bird with our mixtures. I've made up my mixtures here of the Payne's gray and the phthalo blue. And we'll be adding a little, probably burnt sienna maybe to that, just to get the grays that we need in the piling down here. So first thing we're going to do is paying attention to the highlights. We're going to do a wash. There's a darker shadow on the front of him than on the back of him. So I'm going to make up some nice light washes and set those in. Okay, so I've mixed up some variations of gray. I've mixed up a very neutral with the Payne's gray and the phthalo blue. And then I've mixed up a violet because there's a definite violet over here over the wings. So I mixed up I used that phthalo blue mixture, and I put in a little quinacridone rose in there, and so I made this violet. Then I took a little burnt sienna and made this truer gray here. It's just a nicer true gray because I see a lot of that in there. I also see some brown in him. So we'll have a little burnt sienna to the side over here. So first thing I'm going to do is lay in a wash of this kind of neutral gray, probably in here, just to establish this post. And change it up a little bit, add a little more blue, a little more gray here and there, just a nice loose wash. Okay, so if you want some texture on that post, if you just take some paper towel, I'll give you some nice texture there. All right, so we're going to set I'm looking at the values on the bird, and there's a very soft blue that comes right in here. I'm going to go ahead and wet him first with clean water. Not his beak, but his head. Just so that we have some nice loose washes here. And everything kind of mingles together. This is Arches paper, so it's pretty tough. It is buckling a little bit down here, but that's okay. So, probably my favorite paper for students. Okay. Now, this part of his head where there's a slightly grayer, and I always have a test piece of paper nearby. I can also use just my paper towel if I need to. So be careful with the phthalo blue. It does, and mix it really well because it is a very powerful color. So if I just wash that out, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to drop that in loosely, and it goes about to about right there, and comes on down here. And we've saved our whites, so we don't have to worry about that. This whole shadow is coming down here and back over this entire area right here, and that's going to be much darker. Then also, this there's grays in the wing. So just defining some of the details, and this is basically a map just to show you where the wings are on the bird. And birds have a midline. This is the midline right here for him. And if I just wash out some clean water, this side of the bird is lighter because of the sun coming this way. Probably about like that, actually. So that's all going to be lighter. That's browner down there. So I just kind of work through these things, and I'm just basically laying in a soft wash just to start establishing some of the hues in the bird. I want this really soft up here, so I'm going to kind of just make sure that that is soft and curves around and back into here like that. All right. Go ahead and drop in some grays in here, some brown in here, just to define some of these areas. That's just the burnt sienna. Then we've got some browns in here. We've got a little flecks here and there. Then this whole area is so very dark brown. So just going to go ahead and put that in. And this tail feather is very brown also. These are brown. Okay, this is brown up in here around this feather, which is very blue. Okay, so that gives us an idea. We're not going to do the tremendous detail in this bird. There's a really interesting thing that happens here underneath these feathers. Where is it? It's over here. It's very blue right here. This area is also that nice blue violet in here. So let's put some of that violet in there. This is wet on wet. So it's going to be very soft. And it will migrate on down, which is fine. Blot up anything you don't want. And there is a area that comes in here like that. Okay. So, not sure, I think that's a gray right in there. So, be sure and clean your brush between what you put in so that it's soft, remains soft. And pick up anything that you don't want. And if you want to make some texture in the bird, you can do that too. This is fairly solid right here, this area. So we're just going to keep darkening that. Then I'm going to come into my grayer mix in here, but still with blue on it. That's pretty good. And we'll do this wing. If you study the anatomy of birds, it's very helpful. There's a nature artist named John Muir, who actually goes into great detail about, I'm not sure what's going on there. So if you're not sure about something, just kind of fill it in. Anyway, he goes into great detail about wing structures of birds. And this up here has a slight, very yellow tint to it. So if I take my new gamboge and just drop that in, let's see here. And then blot that out. That should give us just that subtleness of that yellow. So I like that. Okay, so we're going to need to let his wing structure dry. This violet, this blue violet, I think I might take some ultramarine blue just to get more of a violet up here. So a little ultramarine in that mix. Come in here again, making that more of a blue violet. Remember, everything is still wet, so, and even some more blue in this. Maybe a little grayer though. Here, that's a better color there. So I went into the gray mixture there. Defining the shadows of his wing. And these are all feathers here. That's the white feathers. And I like how this is coming down here. So we'll let that do that. And this, again, we're back here with the very dark brown. In order to make a very dark brown, the easiest way to do that is with burnt sienna and your Payne's gray. Give us a beautiful dark brown right there. So that wing comes right in here. It's a little wet, but that's okay. This is all one feather up here. Underneath there. But there's some interesting things going on right here. So we'll blot that off. Keep that light right there. This will be pushed much darker here. That should be smooth. So I like to do this gradually so that I don't get too dark too quickly. Just suggesting a little dark on that wing. On that, excuse me, on that feather right there. This is going much darker, so I think we can leave this feather pretty much like that. And I like those darks right there. This beautiful blue-gray that we have going on here. I think we'll try the ultramarine blue with the burnt sienna. And just, yeah, that makes them very nice, warm, dark right there. Slightly violet. So that helps darken that. Ultramarine blue is a good darkening blue. This will have to be much darker. And this actually under here is lighter. So I'm just going to mop that out right there. Going in the form of the actual bird. Drop in a little bit lighter colors over here, but making this stand out. There's a definite shape there that we need to pay attention to. And this, because the top of the bird, the sun is hitting on the top over here, we have to keep that very light. And we'll just soften all that too. Okay, that's really dark as well. So let's get that dark mixture again. This is the Payne's Gray and the burnt sienna. Make that nice brown. A little darker, a little more burnt sienna. A little more Payne's Gray. And pull this right up into here. Because we have some feathers here, right there. And again, pulling it all the way down here. And much darker over here. And just wipe up the edge if you get too much over there. All right. Then underneath here, there's some real darks in here. And I'm painting on probably a 30 degree slant here. So I'm probably my water's gonna move more than yours probably. Okay, so far so good. You have to continue to darken these areas. This is more of a violet, and this is more of a blue here. So I'm really gonna push the blue in here. Now there comes a point where you cannot get in here anymore when the paper starts to dry, and we're almost to that point. So when you get to that point, just dry your painting. I'm gonna go on and down in here with that. Just making some interesting marks here and there where there would be shadows underneath the wings. Okay, I'm liking him. Soften this a little bit along that edge. Gonna go in with that blue violet again. And that was the quinacridone rose and the ultramarine blue. So you can use different blues. Oh, that's pretty. You can use different blues in your painting. You don't have to just stick with one blue. But it all needs to be harmonious. So wherever you're using the blue in your background, you need to use the blue in your foreground also. So that's behind that wing, and that wing stands out. So I'm liking that better. There is some softness coming up in here though, where that Just, that's the form of the bird right there. Okay, we're gonna dry this and then see what we think. Let's put, while we're here, let's put some of these browns in here. Just loosely. Much lighter over here because the sun's hitting there. Maybe a little more burnt sienna in there would be nice. Right there. A little more burnt sienna in there. And some of these crevices that I'm seeing in these pylons are fun to paint. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, in these things. So just changing the mixtures a little bit, just so it's more interesting. Okay. Softening all that. Okay, let's try this and see what we have.